Think for a second about the solar system.
Hmm.
You have these, massive planets orbiting a star at tens of thousands of miles an hour.
Right.
And they just do it in perfect silent synchrony for billions of years. It is an absolute masterpiece of clockwork order.
Oh, totally. A flawless machine.
Yeah. But now contrast that with like a standard city intersection the moment the traffic lights go out.
Oh, boy.
Right. Within 5 minutes, you have blaring horns, fender benders, just total gridlock.
It's immediate chaos.
Exactly. And, look at human history, or frankly, just scroll through the news for 2 minutes today. Why does the physical universe operate like a flawless Swiss watch while human society just looks like an endlessly tangled mess?
It's the ultimate paradox, isn't it? I mean, you're picking up on a really profound tension there.
Yeah.
We live inside a universe governed by these elegant, unbreakable laws of physics, yet our day-to-day human reality feels completely chaotic. It's entirely reactive.
We're constantly on the brink of unraveling.
Right, we untangle one crisis and then, 3 more not up in its place.
Exactly. Which is what makes the source material for today's deep dive so incredibly compelling.
Oh, absolutely.
We're looking at a philosophical framework put forward by a thinker named Lifechanyuan, which was translated by Kinyu. And what this framework attempts to do is take that tangled mess of human history and actually map it out.
Yeah, it argues that our chaos isn't just random.
Right.
It's actually a highly predictable descent, like a ladder of societal decline that humanity has just been falling down step by step.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand the mess we're in, this framework argues we have to start by looking at the very top of the hierarchy, like the absolute ideal state of existence before any of the tangling began.
And in this philosophical architecture, that ultimate foundation is called the Tao.
The Tao.
Right. Feng defines the Tao as the spirit and the consciousness of the greatest creator. But what's really unique here is the language he uses to describe it.
Yeah, it's not what you expect.
Not at all. He doesn't just rely on vague mysticism. He actually employs metaphors from theoretical physics.
Wow.
Yeah, the framework describes the Tao as antimatter, stating it belongs to the negative universe.
Which is just such a striking way to phrase it. But, let's clarify what that actually means for you listening, because it's not meant to be like a Marvel movie plot device.
Right.
By calling it antimatter or placing it in the negative universe, the author is illustrating that the Tao is the invisible underlying infrastructure of reality.
Exactly.
Just like physicists tell us that unseen dark matter holds galaxies together, the Tao is the unseen evolutionary force. It's the lifeblood, the fundamental law of the universe.
Precisely. It's the invisible gravity of existence. And the text argues that when humanity aligns its priorities completely with this invisible law, society doesn't just function, it achieves effortless perfection.
You get national peace.
Yes. You get favorable weather, total natural harmony. Human beings in this state are genuinely modest. There's no friction.
Because humanity is operating as naturally as an apple falling from a tree.
That's it. Perfect harmony.
But, well, humans being humans, we don't seem capable of staying in that state of effortless perfection. We slip.
We always slip.
Yeah. And that brings us to the first major conceptual shift in this framework. When we lose that intrinsic automatic connection to the Tao, we replace it with something called virtue.
Right. Virtue.
The author defines virtue as the quality of gods and Buddhas. It's a mindset that still strictly conforms to the essence of the Tao, but the mechanism has fundamentally changed.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you're really seeing the birth of human effort. The fall from Tao to virtue represents a shift from unconscious harmony into conscious striving. In the state of virtue, we see the rise of religions and movements seeking divine blessings.
People are actively trying.
Exactly. They're consciously trying to avoid arrogance. They're consciously trying not to act recklessly.
I kept picturing this like a massive, ancient forest ecosystem.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so the Tao is the untouched old-growth forest. It just sustains itself perfectly. The soil feeds the trees feed the animals fertilize the soil. Everything intrinsically knows what to do without a manager.
Right.
Virtue, then, is like realizing the forest is starting to degrade, so you bring in an army of park rangers.
Okay, yes.
And in this framework, those park rangers are the religions, the gods, and the spiritual movements.
That is a perfect analogy. The park rangers are constantly reminding the visitors how to respect the woods. Don't litter or stay on the trail.
Right.
And it works. The forest stays clean, Society still functions, and we still live in harmony with nature. But the tragedy is that the very presence of the park ranger proves you are a step removed from pure wild nature.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
When you need a god or a religious movement to explicitly tell you how to live in harmony, it means you've already lost the innate instinct for it.
And once that innate instinct is gone, the descent accelerates.
It really does.
Because eventually the connection to those divine instructions wanes, and raw power dynamics start to take over. This is where the framework introduces the concept of law.
And we should clarify this.
Yes, a crucial distinction for you listening. When this text talks about law at this stage, it is not talking about courthouses or judges or human legal systems.
Far from it. Law here is defined in deeply supernatural terms. It's described as a way for gods, spirits, Buddhas, and even demons to utilize the Tao to manifest their own abilities.
So it's basically magic or power.
Exactly. Whether you read that as a literal supernatural cosmology or just as a metaphor for immense unbridled forces wielding power over the natural order, the result is the same. It's the ultimate power grab.
And the physical consequences on Earth are just devastating.
Total destruction.
Yeah, the framework states that when we abandon virtue and embrace this concept of law, society shatters into warlordism. Wars and plundering become the absolute standard. Humanity begins destroying nature for resources, entering this phase of frenzied development. The invisible infrastructure isn't respected anymore. It's merely extracted and utilized for dominance.
It's all about control.
So naturally, humanity recoils from this bloodshed. We look at the warlords and say, okay, we need to fix this, which leads us to the next conceptual band-aid, which is benevolence.
Right. Society tries to walk back from the brink of destruction. Benevolence is defined in this text as the internal standard that sages use to restrain people and try to artificially uphold virtue.
But I really have to push back on the framing here.
Also,
Well, because in any normal conversation, benevolence is an undeniably positive trait. It means being kind, charitable, and good.
sure.
Yet this source material argues that elevating benevolence is actually a massive downgrade. It says that esteeming benevolence restrains the warlords, sure, but it inevitably leads to cunning, the loss of our spirituality, and relying entirely on cold rationality. I mean, why does a society trying to be kind end up losing its soul?
What's fascinating here is the paradox of divine morality. Think about how human nature actually operates. If you are naturally kind, you don't need a doctrine to teach you kindness, right? You just act.
You're right.
But the moment a society has to elevate benevolence to a formalized standard taught by sages, you are essentially writing a manual for how to breathe. And once you write a manual,
People start looking for loopholes.
exactly. The text argues that this is the exact moment cunning and sophistry take over.
Because if goodness is just a set of rational rules, I can argue about the definitions.
Spot on. Various doctrines, philosophical thoughts, and competing ideologies just flood society. We trade our natural spiritual compass for pure rationality.
We try to think our way into being good.
Yes, but in the process of defining every single parameter of benevolence, we strip away the actual spiritual essence. We aren't being good anymore, we're just following a rubric.
And once you introduce a rubric for morality, people are going to start greeting each other.
Which logically drives us right into the next phase of the decline.
Right, because rationality breathes entirely different ideas of what constitutes goodness, so society begins to splinter. The framework calls this next stage righteousness.
Righteousness.
Yeah, and it's defined as the behavior of noble people. But the warning here is pretty stark. When righteousness becomes a societal trend, it causes political parties, civilian factions, and social groups to emerge in huge numbers.
It is the weaponization of morality.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. If my political party or my social group owns the definition of righteousness, then by default, your group must be unrighteous.
Of course.
The source material notes that this leads to fierce competition for self-centered interests. People are no longer pursuing goodness, they're pursuing the label of goodness to gain power over others.
So society becomes deeply fractured and incredibly unstable.
Highly partisan.
So what does this all mean? Like, how do we keep a fractured, highly partisan society from just murdering each other in the streets?
Well, according to the text, the rulers invent the next stage, which is rituals. Yeah. Rituals are defined as the methods used by those in power to maintain their rule. Good manners, polite society, the proper way of conducting business.
But the outcome described here is absolutely wild. It says that when rituals dominate, human nature degrades into beastly behavior.
It does.
Everyone fiercely climbs over each other, leading to widespread oppression, false accusations, and mutual deception sprouting up. And I just love this phrase from the translation, like mushrooms after the rain.
It's a brilliant, highly cynical observation about human behavior.
Yeah.
The framework suggests that rituals provide a polite, sterile cover for absolute ruthlessness.
A cover.
Yeah. When you force a deeply divided, self-interested society to adhere to strict outward manners, you aren't changing their internal beastly nature. You're just teaching them to be highly effective hypocrites.
It's basically the exact definition of toxic corporate culture.
Oh, perfectly said.
You know, you smile, you use all the right buzzwords in the morning meeting, you engage in the rituals of professionalism, and then you just ruthlessly undercut your coworker over email 5 minutes later to secure your own promotion. The politeness is the weapon.
That is exactly the mechanism at play. The harder society tries to formalize and enforce good behavior from the outside, the more corrupt and animalistic human nature becomes on the inside.
So true.
You adhere to the ritual publicly, but you plot privately. It creates this dog-eat-dog world that is hidden entirely behind a veneer of etiquette.
And that psychological pressure cooker eventually breaks, right?
It has to.
Genuine morality has completely collapsed under the weight of all this hypocrisy. So society decides to just outsmart its own chaos. It abandons the pretense of noble behavior and relies entirely on cleverness and incredibly strict rules to survive. This ushers in the stages of wisdom and trust. Now, I want to be clear for you listening. The text defines wisdom here not as profound spiritual enlightenment, but as the shrewdness and ingenuity acquired by commoners just to survive the meat grinder of society.
It's a severely degraded form of intellect. When a culture promotes this specific kind of shrewdness as true wisdom, people become hyper-calculating.
Hustle culture.
Yes. They grasp for every single inch of merit and personal gain. The text points out that in this stage, people's hearts and their words are completely at odds. Faith in one another is entirely lost.
There's a line in the translation that just stopped me cold.
Which one?
It says that in this stage of wisdom, people's small minds are exceedingly bright while their larger minds are exceedingly foolish. They appear human, but they resemble ghosts.
It's a haunting image, isn't it? The small mind is the part of your brain that knows exactly how to manipulate a tax loophole, or how to algorithmically go viral on the internet, or how to perfectly navigate a bureaucracy. It's hyper-optimized for short-term, selfish survival. But the large mind, the part that actually connects to the Tao, that understands our place in the cosmos, is completely dead.
Wow.
You are incredibly clever, but you possess zero actual wisdom. You're essentially a ghost haunting the machinery of society.
And because you have an entire civilization populated by clever ghosts who absolutely cannot trust a single word anyone else says, you have to invent an artificial replacement for trust.
And there it is.
Which brings us to the stage literally called trust, though it's also translated as credibility. And remember earlier when we talked about law and clarified that it meant supernatural power?
Yes.
Well, our modern human legal systems, our courts, our incredibly dense contracts, our terms of service agreements, those all actually fall under this degraded stage of trust.
The author defines trust here as a mutually binding covenant created specifically to maintain order.
Right.
Because we no longer have the Tao or virtue or even the artificial standard of benevolence to rely on, we're forced to recognize legally binding trust as the ultimate desperate tool for survival.
Because I can't trust you to do the right thing, I have to make you sign a 50-page contract that says, I can ruin you financially if you don't do the right thing.
This raises an important question about the reality we've built. Are we legislating our way into a spiritual prison?
A spiritual prison?
Wow. The text describes a profound state of alienation here. We build massive, infinitely complex legal and bureaucratic systems because our internal moral compass is gone.
Yeah.
We rely on the threat of a lawsuit to force people to keep their word. Constitutions, human laws, and systems just multiply endlessly. And the text notes that in this environment, human nature is almost totally lost.
People just become cogs.
Everyone becomes a mere cog in society's machine, struggling endlessly just to comply with the rules, completely failing to realize any noble ideals.
We're just exhausting ourselves trying to manage the symptoms of our own spiritual emptiness.
Exhausting is the perfect word.
Which brings us to the absolute bottom of the barrel. When the bureaucratic machine of trust and wisdom completely fails to bring anyone actual happiness or peace, society turns to desperate, chaotic illusions.
The final stage.
The final stage of decline. Magical art.
Magical art is defined by Fang as tricks played by lower-class individuals to highlight themselves through abnormal channels.
Okay.
When this phenomenon takes center stage, the societal effect is catastrophic. Superstition reigns supreme. The distinction between humans and ghosts blurs completely.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because when you read the description of magical art in this framework, it sounds exactly like a post-truth apocalypse.
It really does.
The text says that falsehoods, ugliness, and evil completely replace truth, beauty, and goodness. Humanity acts as if it has literally been hypnotized.
Like a spell.
Yeah. People are chaotic, running, screaming, and jumping. It makes society almost impossible to remedy because reality itself has been discarded for cheap tricks. It feels incredibly relevant when you look at certain corners of modern internet culture, deepfakes, viral hoaxes, the celebration of the bizarre just for attention. We are surrounded by illusions designed to hack our attention.
It's the ultimate degradation. If we synthesize this entire tragic descent, you see the full scope of the argument. We started with the antimatter, the invisible physics of the universe operating in perfect unconscious harmony.
Right.
Then we fell to virtue, where we had to consciously try to be good. We slipped into law and benevolence, where power grabs and rationality stripped away our spiritual instincts.
A manual for breathing.
Exactly. Then we fractured through righteousness and rituals, hiding our beastly, selfish nature behind factions and polite etiquette. We degraded into clever ghosts trapped in the endless bureaucratic contracts of wisdom and trust. And finally, utterly exhausted by the machine we built, we collapsed into magical art. A chaotic society, hypnotized by illusions, celebrating the ugly and the false, totally disconnected from reality.
It is just a staggering journey to trace, to look at the tangled mess of human history and see it not as random events, but as a systematic unspooling.
Yes.
A civilization desperately trying to build bigger and more complex bandages to cover up the simple fact that we lost our connection to the fundamental laws of the universe.
And that framework leaves you with a lingering, very urgent thought experiment to ponder on your own. We are currently living in an era where we're trying to encode our ideas of wisdom and trust directly into artificial intelligence.
Oh, wow.
We're trying to build machines that will mathematically govern human behavior and enforce contracts without bias. But if we follow the logic of this text, are we actually solving the problem? Or, by outsourcing our morality to code, are we just creating the ultimate inescapable version of Stage 8?
That's haunting.
Perhaps the harder we try to engineer our way out of the chaos, the further we isolate ourselves from the Tao.